Welcome to the meeting of the Fairfield Representative Town Meeting on February 22nd, 2021. As a reminder to our participants, please remember to state your name when you speak. I ask that the clerk do the roll call, please.
Mike Mahoney.
Here.
Veronica Monahan. Amy O'Shea.
Here.
Amy Ruggiero. Bill Gerber.
Here.
Karen McCormick.
Here.
Cindy Parham.
Here.
Jeff Steele.
Here.
Alex Durrell.
Here.
Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Scott Nickel.
Here.
Sharon Pastilli.
Here.
Laura Carson.
Here.
Alice Kelly.
Here.
Meredith Odenak.
Here.
Marcy Spolier.
Here.
Will Diaz.
Here.
Josh Garskoff.
Here.
Joe Siebert.
Here.
Jay Wolk.
Here.
Matt Ambrose. Hannah Gale.
Here.
Lisa Havey. Tamisha Dunmore.
Here.
Lauren Bove.
Here.
Mark McDermott.
Here.
Jill Vergara.
Here.
Karen Wackerman.
Here.
Hank Ferentz. Pamela Iacono.
Here.
Christine Messina. Pete Tallman.
Here.
Drew Georgiadis. Rick Brower. Chrissy Kelly.
Here.
Bill Perugini.
I'm here, Betsy.
Peter Britton.
Here.
Elizabeth Altabelli. Frank Batiste.
Here.
Marissa Ringel.
Thank
Thank
you. Please, thanks, Betsy. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first item is to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular RTM meeting held on January 25th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Nickel, seconded by Representative Spolier. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Alice Kelly, Representative Alice Kelly is abstaining. Okay, thank you. The motion passes. Item 3 on the agenda. We've got a lot of background noise. If everybody could try to mute their speaker, please. Item 3 on the agenda, to hear a report from the Affordable Housing Committee. We heard that report last week at the committee meeting. Item 4 on the agenda, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Whereas, as part of the Senior Center 5-year bus replacement plan, it is in the best interest of the town of Fairfield to expend up to $71,000 to purchase a wheelchair accessible motor vehicle to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. $56,800 of said purchase to be funded by a traditional 5310 capital senior bus grant under section 5310 of the Federal Transit Act's Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities program. as administered by the state of Connecticut. Representative McDermott.
I wanted to make a motion to approve.
Mark, you're on mute still. What'd you say?
Want to make a motion to approve?
Well, I have to read it all or have somebody move to waive the reading of the item. Would you like to do that? Representative Pistilli is. Okay, thank you. So I'll waive the reading. May I have a motion to approve? Representative McDermott made that motion, seconded by Representative Carson. Is there any, is there any discussion on this item? I forgot that it was on our consent agenda, but we're almost there anyway. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. The motion passes. Item 5 on the agenda, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that in accordance with a request from the WPCA, $115,000 be and hereby is appropriated from the WPCA fund balance for environmental sampling, monitoring, excavation, and disposal of contaminated soils for the microgrid project, the treatment plant, fire academy, conservation building, and animal control building due to the environmental impacts of contaminated soil. May I have a motion to approve this item? Representative Beauvais. Second, please. Representative Nickel. Is there any discussion? Okay, I don't see any hands raised or anything in the chat. So we'll move on to the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Item 6 on the agenda, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that in accordance with a request from the WPCA, $53,595 be and hereby is appropriated from the WPCA fund balance for environmental sampling and monitoring of a gas line trench and installation of a new gas line to the wastewater treatment plant generator. May I have a motion to approve this item? Representative Alice Kelly. Second, please. Representative Diaz. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. It passes unanimously. Item 7 on the agenda, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that in accordance with the request from the WPCA, $135,950 be and hereby is appropriated from the WPCA fund balance for the design to replace 311 feet of the East Trunk Sewer Wetland Crossing Interceptor from the Metro Center, 210 Ash Creek Boulevard, to the intersection of Kennard Street and Kenwood Avenue in accordance with bid number 2021-36. May I have a motion to approve this item? Representative Pistilli, seconded by Representative Iacono. Is there any discussion? Representative Gale.
Yes, through you, Madam Moderator, I just want to make sure that we understand that there is $150,000 that was a term uh, that was a term that was established when the zoning board approved the development in the back of the Metro North, the hotel complex and the buildings that are there, that they would outlay $150,000 for this exact expense, and that we were advised by the WPCA that they would be billing the developer this along with the with the licensing fees that were that they will bill them at the time of the beginning of the project. And if there's,
Okay.
and I'm not, still not 100% sure why they're not paying this bill, I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, let's go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes unanimously too. Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda is to hear and consider for the first time amendments to the tax relief for the elderly and disabled homeowners ordinance, section 95-8 to section 95-15 of chapter 95, article 3 of the code of the town of Fairfield, as recommended by the Board of Finance and as referred by the Legislation and Administration Committee. I'm not sure we voted on an ordinance for some of the newer members, so we hear and consider it 1 month, and then the following month we hear, consider, and vote on it. So today we're just going to hear about it. And just to give you a very brief background, the RTM, the current ordinance had provided that the RTM would create a senior and disabled tax relief committee, I think every year. And we've been doing that. And in, I think it was 2018, we had a very active committee that came up with some plans. And then it was discovered or rediscovered that the Connecticut statutes require the Board of Finance to recommend a change to the ordinance. So that went to the Board of Finance, I think, early 2019. And the person we're about to hear from, Mr. Chris DeWitt, who's on the Board of Finance, chaired the committee that they formed to work on that. And then their recommendation came back in March of 2020. With COVID, it got delayed, and now we're finally going to hear about it, and we'll vote on it next week. So this is what you're hearing is the Board of Finance's recommendation of amendments to the ordinance. Okay, Mr. DeWitt, can you take it away?
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Chris DeWitt, Vice Chairman of the Board of Finance. Thank you for having me tonight. If you're looking at your backup, if you start on page 65, that's the actual document, the actual ordinance, and the changes that are being applied. The only thing I appreciate the background, Ms. Moderator. There's the only one thing I'd add to that is that sometime during the calendar year of 2020, possibly early in 2020, there were some changes that were made to the ordinance in order to, fast lane this, some administrative changes, if you will. They were agreed upon by our committee and the Board of Finance. They were sent to the RTM, and the RTM, I think, unanimously approved those changes. The document.
Right, thank you for that correction.
No problem. The document that starts on page 65 of your backup has all of those changes already incorporated, and anything you see in, I think it's purple text at this point, are changes that the Board of Finance Committee and ultimately the Board of Finance is recommending. So I'm sure you've all read every word of the ordinance, so I won't take you through painful detail of everything. The first change by the backup is on page, excuse me for not being there. is on page 70. So this small unassuming table here is really the heart of the whole ordinance. As I explained to the L&A committee, there's reams and reams and reams of financial data that backs this up. There's tax assessor data. This is really what you're voting on, and every change here impacts the senior tax, the senior and disabled tax in a substantial way. Under tax, just to give you a quick tutorial, right? State law says that I don't care who you are, seniors, whatever, you have to pay at least 25% of the taxes that you owe every year. So when you see the top line, for people who are making have an income of $0 to $18,600, we increased that to 75%. So that, for all intent and purpose, that means that the people that qualify for senior and disabled tax relief that are in that qualifying income bracket are paying the absolute minimum they have to by the state statute. One of the goals of our committee was to not only bolster the amount of people in the plan, but it was to bolster and give the most relief to the people who are making the least. So you'll see that table, the first line, it's for people who are making $0 to $18,600, all the way up to the bottom line where people are making $56,000 to $77,300. You'll notice those two bottom lines haven't changed as far as the tax credit's concerned. That's because we thought the tax credit at that level was fine the way it was. And then what we did is we scaled up. You can see the changes that are in the table. So I just wanted to give you a quick clarification. I'll run you through the changes, then you guys can blast me with questions. Page 71, under 95-15-1, that paragraph used to say that the assessor will give a report to the RTM every June. We added the fact that we'd like them to also he or she give a report now to the Board of Finance every June as well. That should start this June, given this ordinance being approved tonight. As the moderator said, 2 years ago or so, or 3 years ago, no one knew the Board of Finance had a role. And when Mr. Mayor at the time, as our CFO, looked into it, he said, "Wow, you guys have a role." So that's why we got involved. So that's the reason for that change. And then the final change is it starts on page 71 and it goes to page 72. And it's previously called paragraph 95-15-4 was previously called RTM Review Committee. So now that the review committee is a larger body, it's the Board of Finance and the RTM. The new title is Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Review Committee Initiation. So one of the things that our committee and I think it's this, I could speak for the RTM committee. I think they agreed as well that this needs to be a joint effort. This shouldn't be Board of Finance does something, RTM does something. We should all get together and do this. So some of the recommendations we said was, listen, we're going to form a joint board. That joint board will start the process with the tax assessor. And you can read through that language, but basically what it says is the tax assessor says, hey, I think we should look at this. A 3-person board from the Board of Finance looks at it, makes a recommendation to the Board of Finance, and it gets pushed through the process. Page 71, a slight change to that was, if you'll see the first line correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Moderator. The first line, the L&A committee had a change. So the initiator of the process can be either the assessor, the Board of Finance, or the RTM by a majority vote can start this process. I think everything else in the language is pretty much the same. But this was a subject of much debate because, you know, we never had we did not have language in the ordinance that really portrayed how this whole thing should go through the process. So the changes on page 71 were all voted on by the Board of Finance. Changes on page 71 were amended by the L&A committee, and they weren't substantial enough to go back to the Board of Finance one more time. So that's where we are tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. DeWitt? Representative Vergara?
Hi, yeah, Jill Vergara, District 7. I wanted to thank Mr. DeWitt for bringing up the administrative changes, which predated the Board of Finance's proposal that we're looking at now. I think some of us remember passing those changes, but I thought this was an interesting thing to raise because it shows how the process can work, actually. Because what happened with those administrative changes was that a constituent reached out to me as the chair of the RTM Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Committee and said that she was a participant and that she was having problems with the medical deduction language as someone who is a participant, as a disabled participant. And my committee worked on it over the summer. We wrote the language. We had several meetings where we talked about it. We talked about it with the assessor. We talked about it with the constituent and FSA as well. Several members of the public participated in the process. And we fast-tracked it to the Board of Finance because we wanted to make sure that we would get these changes made for that fiscal year because it was an important issue. People were being negatively affected by it. So we did that. We got it to the Board of Finance, and the Board of Finance fast-tracked it for us as well. And they passed it. They did it very quickly. It was streamlined. They took our language and it went right back to the RTM. So I just wanted to point out that that was a way that the process actually worked. And we all were working together with that one. So I wanted to thank Chris for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to do so.
Are there any other comments or questions for Mr. DeWitt? I don't think I see any. Oh, Representative Vergara.
Oh, it was so close.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions if nobody else has any questions. I just know, so when you presented this to the L&A committee, you had like a presentation for us and you showed some of the goals. There were like 3 goals listed. And one of those goals was to maximize the number of seniors who can take advantage of the senior and disabled tax relief. And I think that that's a really laudable goal. It has been an issue, a serious issue of attrition for years. And this year is the lowest participation that we've had going as far back as we can with the data. I think that we go back 12 years and it's the lowest that we've been in those 12 years. And actually, we're even lower than we were in 1982 when it was, we had 1,326 participants in 1982 when our population was a fraction of what it was today. So I just wanted to see, how does your proposal do that? How does your proposal address that participation decline? How are you maximizing the numbers of seniors who can participate?
So I'm trying to remember the 3 goals on our presentation. I know one of the goals was certainly to maximize the number of participants. Second goal was to give the most benefit to those most needy, and I define that as the people making the least amount of money, right? And I don't remember what the third. If there was a third, I'm not recalling. What I think Representative Vergara is getting at is, if we opened up the qualifying income to 90,000, to 150,000, to 500,000, we get more people. I mean, it's just a factor, because there's a very, if you've read through, there's only a couple qualifying. There's only a couple qualifiers, I guess is the best way to put it, right? You have to be a certain age. You have to reside in Fairfield. Most of the year, I think, is the way it's, more than 6 months out of the year. And there's, other disclaimers, right? But so what our goal was, I know what the third goal was. It was to keep it affordable for Fairfield. Because, for example, if we opened up the qualifying income to $200,000, okay, 65-year-old pulling in $200,000 a year, and we give them tax relief. The tax relief this tax relief comes at a price. The proposal before you, and I can't give you a specific dollar amount because that has to come from the tax assessor, but it's about $3.9 million. And that's $3.9 million of revenue that will not be coming into the town in fiscal year 21-22, right? So the way we maximize it, we maximize it within a budget. And I know the RTM proposal had an additional line to take it to $90,000, the income. Our committee just didn't think that there was a need to add that additional burden to the town, but you do lose the overall contributors. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I understand that aspect of it, but you said that one of the goals was to maximize participation, and that's not being accomplished through this recommendation, which I think is a missing gap, because it is something that's been pointed out by several committees who have studied this as being a problem. And it's been identified as a problem with senior advocates too, saying that this is an issue that we're having less and less participation. There are other ways besides changing the eligibility requirements to get more participation. It could maybe be building in a fund for mailers every year or periodically to ensure that we're contacting the seniors, as many people as we can, and notifying people of the programs as they exist. And advertising is really important. I think my committee did that a couple of years ago, and it resulted in a lot more applications that year, and which was really good. But so maybe we should be sticking on that. But there are also other eligibility criteria outside of the income eligibility that you can look at, like the asset levels too. And so I wanted to get an understanding of why your committee didn't look at that at all, like maybe even just to a smaller degree than the RTM, or whether you just think it's okay to have the program at a low participation level. Like we have 1,300 participants now. We had 1,600 over 1,600 participants just 5 to 6 years ago. So I just wanted to see, do you not think that that's a problem that we should be fixing, or?
Well, that's quite a loaded question. I think there should be maximum amount of benefit for the seniors in our town. I also, as a Board of Finance person, have to keep this affordable. We're maximizing the number of participants who need aid by bolstering that low end. The RTM, I did not want to get into a, he said, she said about the RTM proposal and this proposal tonight. But I will tell you, the RTM proposal had a flat increase across all levels that actually gave more money to the people who were making more and less money to the people making less. So that was a goal of ours, and that was one of the things that we changed. The other thing I want to address is, you know, how we get out the message. My committee went to the senior center 3 times. We went for lunch 2 days, which was lovely. And we went one evening and we polled seniors and we took surveys. And we asked, you know, how can we make, do you know about this? How can we make this better? All that data got rolled into here, right? We've recommended that there be a small flyer that goes in every tax bill that says, hey, if you're a senior, you should take advantage of senior tax relief. There was something on the website recently about the fact that if you don't sign up by this date, you're going to lose the eligibility. So again, I really don't know how you want me to answer it. I think we gave the maximum benefit. 1,300 people is a lot of people taking advantage here. Could there be more? Sure. You could open this qualifying income up to $200,000 and you get 2,000 people. Great. But I mean, you know, the benefit outweighs, you know, the cost of this thing. And this is, you know, I personally don't think someone making $200,000 should be getting senior tax relief. Just, you know, my thoughts, right?
Well,
Representative Vergara, would you mind if there's a couple people who actually
Yes,
also
definitely.
wanted to ask
sorry,
questions?
absolutely.
We can come back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Parham.
Hi, Cindy Parham, District 2, Secretary of the Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Committee for the last 5 years. I just wanted to make a note that times have changed, income has changed, and the top level of income where you can qualify for any relief at all, is $77,300. That has not been changed since they were voted in that change in 2012, effective 2013. And I think we need to change with the times. As people's cost of living increases are in place, they may not be able to get tax relief when they did 8 years ago, and now they're not able to. So please be advised, everyone on this call, that nothing has changed to change the level of income in 8 full years.
That's actually incorrect. If you look at the table that says $70,000 has a cross through it. That was the level that you voted on in 2012. Now the number is $77,300.
So that's 8 years.
Okay, are you criticizing the fact that we haven't done anything in 8 years?
I am. I think as not you, I'm not criticizing you at all. I'm criticizing the fact that we haven't helped people with changes to the income levels in too long. And that was my only comment.
Okay.
Okay. Representative Carson.
Hi, Laura Carson, District 4. Just have a question. You said that we could open up, you know, maybe to 90,000, and then we would have more people, or it opened up to 200,000. But the number that we had capped at is the same, and we've lost people. And I'm not understanding why we've lost people. It's not, it's not because if you would, you know, it's just trying to understand that.
Unfortunately, by virtue of the fact of what this is a senior and disabled tax relief. We lose participants by attrition of death. I mean, that's an unfortunate reality of this. You know, I don't think that will come to a surprise to anyone, or anyone will be shocked by me saying that.
But then people get older and fill that void.
Yeah, no,
65.
Absolutely. I think the number, I don't have the number right in front of me. I thought it was 1,306 people are taking advantage. And I think for the last couple of years, it's been hanging around that number. Representative Vergara harkens back 5 years ago to 1,600. It hasn't been that number, I think, for 5 or so years.
I understand. One more question.
Sure.
How did you, what would be the difference if you went up to say 87,000 versus 77 to the town, like the increments to give us the number of how much we would have to defer that tax payment? Sorry, my dog.
Well, the impact is not linear, right? Because, you know, as you take people who are making a larger income and defer those taxes, that's more of an impact than someone making it, $15,000. So, it definitely is not linear. So to answer that question in real detail, I'd have to go back to the tax assessor and get the number, rerun. But this might be a good point to just bring this point up, Ms. Moderator, if I may. I'm not sure. I don't want to sit here and tell you guys how much time this all took and what a great job we all did on this thing. But it's a long time coming. This was a 2019 work in progress. We worked hard at it, and then in 2020 the world fell apart, and then we kind of forgot about this. So if we were to make if you were to make a recommendation that, let's take the number up to $87,000, we could probably figure out what the impact would be, but it would have to go back through the Board of Finance, blah blah blah. My committee we were very clear, right? We knew this wasn't going to be perfect when we did it. I don't think it was perfect when the RTM did it. We wanted to get it out there. Let's figure out how many people are going to take advantage of it, and then we can tweak it. I mean, there's nothing that says we can't tweak this in a year or 2 years.
Okay. Representative Vergara.
I just wanted to quickly answer Representative Carson's question because I do have the answer for how much it would be to raise it to 90,000. That's something that the assessor had priced out pretty recently in November, and it's $210,000. It would be an additional tax revenue loss of $210,000.
So that would be a total impact of $4.1 million-ish.
Okay, thank you. Representative Beauvais.
Hi there. I appreciate everybody's effort on this, Mr. DeWitt, the committee itself, everyone on the RTM. I know this is tough, and we've been working on it for many years. My question is, it hasn't been changed in 7 years or something, 7 to 9 years, the number that makes you eligible. If it was kept up with the level of inflation over the years, the past, say, 9 years, what number would it be now?
Oh, I believe that $77,300 number is representative of that 8-year or 7-year increase.
So like 7 or 8 years, and what is it? A couple percentage points inflation?
I couldn't tell you. Frankly, I get that number from the tax assessor.
Okay.
But I believe so. I think what you're asking is if there's a 2% cost of living increase year over year, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't just bump it up 2%. We bumped it up, 2% times the number of years we haven't. This has been inactive, which is 6 or 7 years, right?
Okay.
I don't think we're doing any harm by raising this number to 77,300.
No.
I think we're only doing good. We can nickel and dime this to 80,000 or 90,000. Our committee didn't think taking it to 90,000 was a good mix of how much it's costing the town to how many additional benefactors would come out of it.
I just have one other thing to ask you as an expert in this area. I'm not 100% sure where the numbers run, but I know that it's really important. We want to expand the number of seniors that are allowed to comfortably live in our town, that they've lived here and they want to stay here. And I feel like I'm getting toward that route myself as I get older. I want to stay here. I'd love to, even though my kids are older now. But it is expensive. As a home of, say, not this yet. It's not me. Not projecting. But say I was in a home of 2 senior citizens and an adult child, and we're all paying taxes to the town. There's a value to that we're not taking out of the town as much as, say, we don't have a house full of 10 children that are relying upon the school system as much. We want a mix in this town of kids and seniors for just the culture, but also I think financially, and I don't know if this is correct, Mr. DeWitt, is seniors are of value in more than one way.
Seniors are absolutely, so this is only personal opinion, right? We're getting a little bit off the topic of the dollars and cents, which is where I was focusing. But Chris DeWitt's perspective is seniors add a lot to this town, right?
But I do mean financially. I don't want to be uncouth in any way, but financially, seniors are of value.
Oh, no. Yeah, again, I agree with you. You know, most of the seniors in our town didn't show up here when they were 65. They showed up here when they were in their 30s. And then they put their kids through, they paid taxes and put their kids through school and built schools and did all those things for 50, 60 years. And now they're at the, you know, they're getting to the point where, you know, there's no kids left and they're in a home and we're trying to, you know, we're trying to augment the tax bill. So I think when this was first initiated back in 1982, I think it was Jackie Durrell did it, I believe. I think everyone realized there's a benefit to keeping our seniors in town, and that benefit has a financial impact that we could help minimize, and that's what this is all about. I guess we could debate how much benefit we're giving them, but you know, this is where we landed after our committee was complete.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Castilli.
Sharon Castilli, District 3. Through you, Madam Moderator, I'm not certain if this is a question for Mr. DeWitt or for Ms. Vergara, but I was wanted to know if we've considered adding assets as a qualifier to this. Like, I know we can't do it for this cycle, but you know, perhaps next year, like, does adding assets make sense, and what are the considerations with that? Because somebody with a low amount of income but a high amount of assets, especially since the market's been doing well, you know, that might enable us to open it up to someone who might have slightly higher income but lower assets and therefore be in a worse financial position.
Well, there is a QTAV clause in here. I have to be honest with you. If you're not looking at this every day, this is a tough thing to keep in my mind. But there is a qualifier on assets, right? So, and I believe it's 650. 600. I'm trying to find it, and I'm not doing a good job.
It is 650.
650,000, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So there already is built in a clause that, you know, your assets are considered. You know, if that asset's not your primary residence, there's a lot of questions we get is this: hey, I've got an income of you know, $15,000, but I have you know, the way that I saved for my retirement was I bought $4 or $5 million homes, right? So, you know, you can only be assessed on the home that is your primary resident. And again, the assets are already considered in the document. It's under QTAV.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that the assessor gave a list of suggested changes in 2017. And one of his suggested changes was actually to eliminate the QTAV because it's so hard to administer. It's really hard to make sure that we're doing it equitably, that everybody's really including all of the assets that they're supposed to. you basically need to audit it to make sure that they're doing that. And you know, there's also a problem with equity in terms of, for our definition right now, which it actually in our ordinance, it isn't well defined. We found a worksheet that Newtown uses, so it's helped. We give it to the people we give it to the participants and to the applicants to show them what should be included in calculating assets, but it's not defined in our ordinance. And so it's been really hard for the assessor to really make sure that each applicant is doing it in the same way. And IRAs, 401ks are included in the definition of assets for the way we've been applying it, but pensions are not. And that's problematic. So, you know, so that's why our committee wanted to move it. We decided to eliminate the QTAV and replace it with an assessment limit, which is what many towns do already. Greenwich does it. I have to look at the list. We went through the whole comparative thing with all of these other towns, but it's much more straightforward. It's more straightforward for the assessor, and it's more straightforward for the applicant too. We could put it into the ordinance, tell people exactly what the limit is, and it just, the clarity and the simplicity would make it easier for people applying and also for the town administering the program.
So just to be clear, I took up this clause in 2019. The first call I made was to the tax assessor. Prior to me taking up this, my committee and I taking up this clause, Bob Mayer, as the CFO of the town, imposed a cap because he was afraid that the elimination of the QTV could just run rampant to the point where we couldn't control it. And again, I've already said this is $3.8 million, right? That's not going to go into the fund this year. When I talked to Mr. Ross in 2019, Mr. Ross had changed his mind and did not agree any longer that the QTAV should be eliminated. Hence the reason that it's not eliminated. I keep pointing over here, so I got the document up my other screen. But hence the reason that it has not been eliminated in the current version you're looking at.
But it's still a definitional problem. Like, we don't even really have it defined in the ordinance to give people notice of what assets they're supposed to be including in this. So we had proposed, if in the alternative this wasn't eliminated, different ways that we could define it. We found an IRS expatriation form that gives a really distinct set of assets to look at. And we also, you know, there are different ways that it can be defined, but it needs to be done. So.
You know, one of the, you know, and I just thought about participation. I was thinking about it. You know, one of the reasons that we're losing participants, and this is a good thing, right? Incomes are going up. So some of the participants are not in this system anymore because their income's growing, which is really good, but also their assets have increased. So if you're in a situation where you were getting senior tax relief, and then all of a sudden your income's up and your assets are worth more, those seem like good things to me. You might be losing the benefit here but I'd say you're much better off having more asset value and more income than the relief you're getting from this ordinance. Just
but like
my
you
own
pointed
opinion.
out, Chris, like you pointed out, there's a COLA mechanism for income. So that's built into the ordinance, even though I don't think that it really makes up for the cost of living changes, but it does exist, and you're right about that. There's no mechanism like that for the assets. So this was changed in 2012, and the assets were set then, and it stayed stagnant from then until now. 650,000 is not a lot. It's definitely not enough for someone to retire on. And if you compare it to like Newtown, where, you know, cost of living is much less than Fairfield, it's crazy the difference between our asset definition and theirs. Theirs is higher than ours. I think theirs is either 1,800,000 to 1 million, and ours is 650. So to me, that points out the fact that if we're going to keep it, we probably need to be raising the limit.
Representative Perham?
Yes, this is Cindy Parham, District 2. I just have a question for Mr. DeWitt and then one quick statement. You mentioned that you went to the senior center for 2 lunches and an evening and surveyed seniors and put their information compiled into the study. How many seniors approximately did you think you met with and talked with?
Oh my gosh. 50, 60 maybe a little more.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, because I've done some seminars there, and sometimes we only get a handful, so that's wonderful.
Well, let me tell you, when you go for lunch,
during lunch, right?
When you go for lunch, you know, that was I can't think of the lady's name right now. It was running the senior center at the time. She's like, Chris, if you want to talk to people, you got to come at lunch. So we sat down and they ate lunch, and we
Oh, okay. Was it Julie DeMarco or was it Terry prior to?
I think it was Julie DeMarco, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I just had one statement that I just want to remind everyone that if the income limit does go from 77.3 to 90, yes, that's $210,000, but that's going to help 187 people with an average benefit of $1,122. And that is not chunk change. That is something substantial. And I think it makes them feel appreciated no matter what their age or how much their income went up, which I do tend to doubt it went up greatly. And I really just think helping 187 people with a benefit of over $1,100 is where I stand. And I stand behind that 100%. Thank you.
But
Thank
but
you.
to be clear, that's not what's before you tonight, right?
Mhm.
In its current form, right?
It was just a comment about how change is really necessary more than anything else.
Mhm. Representative Gerber?
Yeah, hi, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, hey. I just follow up on Lauren Beauvais' point about seniors, using less services in town. Do you have part of your calculation as to what we can afford? Do you actually try to estimate how much the town saves, for each person that goes on this program and doesn't have to leave town? Is that part of the affordability? You talked about the gross number of 3.8 million. Is there sort of a net number, net of savings that you guys consider?
I don't think there was ever a number. All the numbers are generated from the tax assessor. I don't think there was ever a forward-looking. If every senior decided to move out of town tomorrow, we'd have, 35 and a half more kids in school, and we would be burdening the wastewater system by 10%. I mean, no, that's not part of this analysis.
I think that data is probably hard to come by, but I think that is, has always been, from what I recall, one of the things that seniors have talked about is, hey, we don't use a lot of services. We cost, a lot less to the town. I think Fairfield taxpayer used to talk about that a lot. I think if we can going forward, I see someone posted that FSA is valued at $10,000 per senior. Do we have any data on people leaving town because of taxes that might otherwise have qualified at different levels? Is that part of these? No, not that either.
No, one of the excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Representative Gerber. One of the hardest things, there's 2 hard things, right? And Jill brought up one of the Representative Vergara brought up is making sure all the seniors know about it, right? I think the senior center does amazing job of people who go there of making sure they understand it. In fact, the tax assessor office goes there at lunchtime and helps people fill it out. So that's great. But the really hard thing is to understand why a person left. So we know when there's a death most of the time, not all the time, but we don't know if the person left because they couldn't take care of themselves. Now they're living with their son. If they moved out of town, or even if they stayed in town, so that data has been very hard to find. But I will say something about the surveys we did or the interviews we did. I was amazed at how many people said, "This is keeping me in town, Chris." And I mean people who with very low incomes. And I'm like, Jesus, you're getting like $600. No, it's keeping me in town, Chris. So I was really amazed by the impact it had to the people who were participating.
That's great to hear. And I would assume, there's probably a sliding scale of how it would keep people in town as the income levels go up as well. And I wonder, I know it's very difficult, but I wonder if there would be some way to make this more scientific so that we're not, we can do long-term planning about what the impact of this program is. Maybe this year it's going to cost $3.8 million, but we should try to get some sense, if we can, of what it saves us down the line and what the net cost actually is. And there's got to be some point on the curve where it breaks even, for us. And it's stuff that, maybe it's impossible to get, but we should be striving to. I don't think we've done we've done all that we can to actually figure that out.
Sounds like a wonderful mission statement for the next committee.
But I just want, I'm sure everyone gets now, but I think people need to understand that there's a selfish element to having this program as well, and that's not included in the number, the 3.8 million number. That's a gross number. There is a net number. We just don't know what it is. Thank you.
Representative Vergara.
I just wanted to dovetail on what Representative Gerber raised, because I think it's such a good point, and I really like to hear that word long-term planning. And I feel like we don't hear enough about that. And with regards to the senior tax relief, it is like Chris DeWitt was saying, it is really hard to get this data. And we've been talking about exit polls or like interviews when someone leaves the program to gather that information. And I think it's a really good idea and it's important. But I also think that we need as a town to be gathering this data. Like the Affordable Housing Committee came to us the other day and they had great data about changes in the values of our homes and the different rates of affordability with these homes. And I think we need that same kind of data with seniors exiting town. So like when someone sells a house, I would like to know over these past 2 years, and especially in this past year period where we've had such a tremendous amount of sales. I think that the Affordable Housing Committee said that there's been like an 80% increase in sales in the past year or 2 years. It was something insane. So, but we need to track that as a town so that we can do better planning. And it would be important to know how many of those people leaving town are seniors, how many people are moving in who have families, have small children, so that we can plan for our schools too. So I feel like this all, like the senior tax relief, schools, and this long-term planning, it all weaves into each other. And it's really essential work that we should be doing as a town. I really think it's important for us to know from this past year how many seniors we've lost and how many families we've gained.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you for coming, Mr. DeWitt. Do you think you could join us next month when we have to vote on this?
Absolutely.
I know you have nothing else to do with your time.
Nothing to do next month. Especially in the
Okay,
middle
thank
of
you.
March, I won't be doing absolutely anything on the budget.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming
you,
and
Chris.
spending the time. So before we end the meeting, Representative Steele asked for a moment of personal privilege. So please go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Just two things. First is a housekeeping item. As you may know, I'm doing a Robert's Rules session next Wednesday with FOIA, with a section on FOIA as well. It'll begin with FOIA first and then Robert's Rules. I don't think it's going to go more than an hour and a half, but it'll be a good hour and a half. I'll go over, the basics of Robert's Rules, which I wanted to do the spring of 2020 until COVID hit. But I think this will be a good session for everyone who is still getting a grasp for how everything works. And it's also open for other townwide bodies. I think there's going to be around 100 people on it. So it should be pretty good. And I'll go over some of the issues and then open it up for Q&A as well. So it'll be pretty thorough, but I won't take all night. I'll tell you that. Just the other thing I wanted.
Thank you for doing that too.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to do it. I wish we could have done it last year. It would have been good for this body here with all the new members, because there are a lot of new members. But it's the way it happened last year. But it'll be helpful, I think, to everyone. And I've done a number of these to different bodies and civic groups too. So hopefully it'll go smoothly. Just the other thing I wanted to mention before we all wrap up is just bring note to the recent tragedy a few weeks ago here in Fairfield that really shook the town, and that's the suicide of Kevin Cutso. And I say suicide because we no longer have to say the S word anymore, and we can bring it out and be open about it. And it's just unbelievably tragic. And as tragic as it was, and as soul crushing as it was, I didn't know Kevin, but I know the father quite well. And needless to say, it's devastating for them and their whole family. But hopefully, amidst all this, we can kind of rise to action and be more aware of things like, here are 5 stats that are important to take away. 26% of Americans suffer from diagnosable mental illness. 26% of Americans, 1 in 4 of us. 35% of 14 to 18-year-olds have a mental health crisis each year. 35% of 14 to 18-year-olds. Half of those with a treatable illness receive clinical care. And then there are 44,000 suicides a year. It's the 10th leading cause of death among Americans. Among 15 to 24-year-olds, it's the 2nd leading cause of death. 2nd leading. And certainly COVID hasn't helped this. And, a lot of us think of mental health, mental illness, and depression, and it is depression, but it's so many other things. It's everything from phobias to anxiety to OCD, bipolar, PTSD, schizophrenia, eating disorders, depression itself. And there are many different conditions that lead to that. And there just has to be a greater awareness of this. I was at the funeral a few weeks ago, and it was moving as you could imagine. And a lot of the messaging that came out of that and afterwards from the father himself was that we need greater awareness in society. We need greater awareness here in the community. We need to do more. We need to do more for educating and making aware parents, teachers, the kids themselves. There's more we can do in the school system. As good as it may be, we can do better. Clearly, it's not good enough. And this comes down to the curriculum. It comes down to more counselors. Now we have budget issues, there's no doubt. And there's only so much that medicine and counseling can do. It comes to community support. We all have to know how to identify it, be aware, and to deal with it. But the other message was that it shouldn't be a stigma anymore. Right? I mean, I say suicide. It's like a taboo word. It's an awful word. But mental illness is not a stigma. I mean, you figure a kid who comes back from a hospital with a broken arm, has a cast, kids flock around him and they sign it. Kid comes back from a medical clinic or a hospital because of a mental illness. People put him in a corner. It should not be a stigma. It can't be a stigma. And it's up to us as parents, it's up to us as community leaders to be aware of this and to teach it and to identify it and to be part of the solution. And so, yes, this is part of a public service announcement, but also, you know, I just wanted to honor what has happened because it's beyond tragic. So we can take a moment of silent meditation, if that's okay, Madam Moderator.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So,
Thank you.
Thank you
Madam
so
Clerk,
much.
appreciate that.
That's so important, and it's not discussed enough. So thank you very much. A motion, looking for a motion to adjourn, and I see that Representative Perham has made the motion, seconded by Representative Pistilli. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next month.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye-bye.